Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be lecturing a short lecture on why humans believe things that aren't true. Let me begin with a simple question. Why do intelligent, educated, thoughtful people believe things that are not true? Flat Earth, anti-vaccine myths, conspiracy theories, financial bubbles, superstitions, even everyday misunderstandings about colleagues, spouses, or ourselves. This is not a question about stupidity. In fact, the more unsettling answer is this. Believing false things is not a bug in the human mind. It's a feature of how the mind evolved. So, tonight, I want to take you on a journey through cognitive science, evolutionary psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy to answer a paradox. So, why would the brain designed for survival be so vulnerable to illusion? Now, let me share on the whiteboard here. I'm gonna make it white. I'm not sure you can see it here. Right? So the first point is the brain was not built for truth. Put it in here. Put it in. Oh, right. Is there any text here? So put it here. So first point is the brain was not built for truth. Wow, what is that? Let us begin with evolution then. Natural selection does not optimize for truth. It optimizes for survival and reproduction. Imagine two prehistoric humans hearing, hustling in the bushes. Well, one thinks it's probably just the wind. The other thinks it might be a predator. Or if it is just the wind, the paranoid one wastes energy, right? If it's a predator, the skeptic dies. Well, over thousands of generations, evolution favored false positives over false negatives. Yeah. So this principle is called error management theory. And it's called error management theory. I'm going to write it down here. Error management. So who developed this? Who developed this? So it's developed by David Boss and Marty Halston. You can also search more on your own if you want to know who are these people. So David Boss and Marty Halston. So the mind evolved to err on the side of caution. So our brains are tuned not for accuracy, but for adaptive bias. Now let's move on to part number two. Part number two is the cognitive machine of false belief. What's that? What is the meaning of it? The cognitive belief. The cognitive machine of false belief. Now let's move to cognitive psychology. So in 1974, two psychologists, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write them their names down here. So what did they say? They revolutionized our understanding of human reasoning. They show that humans rely on heuristic. Yeah, heuristic. I'm gonna write it down for you, which is heuristic, which is mental shortcuts. Heuristics are efficient, but they produce systematic errors. So we seek evidence that confirms what we already believe. We ignore contradictory information. And we judge likelihood by how easily examples come to mind. For instance, if plane crashes are on the news, flying feels dangerous even if statistics says otherwise. And we reason toward conclusions we want to be true. That is not irrationality, it is cognitive efficiency under constraint. And the brain is a prediction machine operating under limited energy. Now, I want to move on to the next part, part 3, which is the social brain and tribal truth. So, what is social brain and tribal truth here that I'm going to explain here? Humans are not solitary truth seekers. We are tribal primates. Yeah, we are tribal primates. We got to take note of it. Well, then you would say, I can be alone. I don't need anyone. Well, I don't know about that. Even God wants us to have fellowship with our fellow believers, Christians. Beliefs are not just representations of reality, they are signals of group identity. So the social psychologist Jonathan Haidt, yeah, I'm going to write it down. What he argues that moral reasoning is often post hoc justification for intuitive group loyalties. Similarly, philosopher Dan Sperber, so he is a philosopher, Dan Sperber, I'm going to write it down, his name, Sperber. So what does he say? What did he say? He says that, and he proposes that argumentative theory of reasoning evolved not to discover truth, but to win arguments and coordinate groups. So beliefs function socially. So to belong, we must align. If accepting a false belief strengthens social bonds, evolution may favor belonging over accuracy. So in ancestral environments, being alone, wrong alone, is more dangerous than being wrong together. Right, now let's move on to the next part, which is the neuroscience of belief. Part number 4. 2, 3, 4. The neuroscience of belief. So what I'm going to say under the neuroscience of belief. Now let's turn to the brain itself. Neuroimaging studies show that when core beliefs are challenged, areas associated with threat detection, like the amygdala, so I'm going to write it down here, threat detection, which is like the amygdala, amygdala. Well, if I have to put it in this amygdala, it's a small almond-shaped structure located deep within the brain's temporal lobe, acting as a crucial component of the limbic system. So it processes emotions, notably fear, anxiety, and aggression, and plays a key role in memory consolidation and threat detection. So dysfunction of the amygdala, it's associated with anxiety, PTSD, and Alzheimer's. So here, it's like the amygdala activates. Belief defense feels like a physical danger. Meanwhile, when information confirms our worldview, reward circuits involving dopamine activate. Belief is not just cognitive, it is emotional, it is embodied, it is neurologically reinforced. False beliefs can feel true because they satisfy emotional coherence. Now, let's move on to part number 5, the predictive brain. So under predictive brain, the things that I want to pinpoint is the modern neuroscience suggests something even deeper. So according to predictive processing theory advanced by thinkers like Carl Friston and Andy Clark, the brain does not passively receive information. So that's what they found out and what this says, right? Carl Friston and Andy Clark. It predicts reality. Perception itself is a controlled hallucination constrained by sensory input. Beliefs are high-level predictions. When evidence contradicts them, the brain has two options. Either update the belief or reinterpret the evidence. Often, interpretation is less cognitively costly, so the mind preserves coherence. So truth is expensive, coherence is efficient. Now, let's move on to the next one, which is power, information, and the modern environment. That is in part number 6. Mm. Oh, all right. Right. So part number 6, it's in the 21st century, our ancient cognitive architecture meets digital amplification. So social media algorithms optimize for engagement, not truth. False information spreads faster since it is novel, emotionally charged, and identity reinforcing. So research from institutions like Massachusetts Institute of Technology shows that false news spreads more rapidly online than true news. That's what, I mean, it just really has to backing up with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That's live it is. Even negative spreads faster than the positive news. So we involved in small tribes. Now we navigate global information ecosystems. Our cognitive hardware is Paleolithic. So I'm going to write it down, this word, Paleolithic. It's called our cognitive hardware. All right. So it's Paleolithic. What is Paleolithic? Paleolithic, it's like it's also called as All Stone Age. Yeah, Paleolithic or All Stone Age is a period in human prehistory distinguished by the original development of stone tools. So in summary, I could say Old Stone Age. Yeah, it's referred to a time in human history when foraging, hunting, and fishing were the primary means of obtaining food. So, and humans had yet to experiment with domesticating animals and growing plants. So that is called Paleolithic, right? So our informational environment is hypermodern, and the mismatch is profound. Now, part number 7, the philosophical question: what is truth for that? We must we must confront a deeper question. Is belief primarily about representing the world or about navigating it? Philosopher William James argued that beliefs are tools for action. So here, William Tools. If you want to know more about him, you can just look it up. And a belief is a true in so far as it works, but this pragmatic view leaves us vulnerable. So if a belief works socially or emotionally, but not empirically, should we keep it? So this is the tension between epistemic rationality, yeah, which is also known as truth seeking. That's called epistemic rationality, which is truth seeking, and instrumental rationality, which is goal seeking. Humans constantly trade one for the other, right? Now, let's talk about when false beliefs become dangerous. When it becomes dangerous, part number 8. When? When it becomes dangerous. Not all false beliefs are equal. Some are harmless illusions. Others cause harm, public health crisis, violence, economic collapse. The danger arises when false beliefs scale, they become immune to correction, and they are weaponized by power structures. So the philosopher Hannah Arendt warned that the deliberate erosion of factual truth destabilizes democracy. So once shared reality dissolves, so does trust. And without trust, coordination collapses. So that is the philosopher. Right. So now we move on to part number 10. Part number 9. Can we do better? Like, since it's a false belief, it's deeply human, right? What can we do? First, humility. Recognize that you are not immune. Second, epistemic virtue, intellectual humility, curiosity, willingness to update. Third, institutional design, transparent algorithms, better media literacy, incentives for truth over outrage. Fourth, community norms. Truth thrives in cultures that reward correction rather than shame it. So reward correction is something to look for. So as in conclusion, being false things does not make us foolish. So as my conclusion, believing false things does not make us foolish. It makes us human. Our brains evolved to survive, not to published peer-reviewed journals. But we're also the species that invented science, the species that developed falsifiability, peer review, and critical debate. So here I just want to put this word for you, falsifiability. And what is falsifiability, which is introduced by philosopher Karl Popper? It's the principle that a scientific theory, possibilities, is created by Karl Popper. It's a principle that a scientific theory, hypothesis, or propositions that must be inherently disprovable through empirical observation or experimentation to be considered scientific. So it means Karl Popper is just simply saying that whether it's a scientific theory or hypothesis or proposition, without the scientific, as long as it's not being backing up by empirical evidence or observation, and this experiment are still yet to be considered as scientific. Yeah, so that is falsifiability. So it means that humans has room to make mistakes. And the species that can't reflect on its own cognitive limits. The real question is not why do humans believe things that aren't true? The real question is, will we build culture strong enough to correct ourselves? And truth is not natural, and it is cultivated. And in the 21st century, the survival advantage may finally belong not to those who cling to belief, but to those who can revise it. So this is my short lecture on why human believes things that aren't true. So I hope you get something out of from my lecture. So I see you in my next lecture. We'll be coming with a very unique and different topic for you. So God bless you. Take care. Bye.